And now, Death Valley Days. Howdy, folks. I'm the old ranger, and I have another interesting true story for you about the historic Death Valley country. This is one of those fabulous stories that could only have happened in pioneer days with the opening up of new country. It is the year 1865. Washington Territory is still largely a wilderness. Its settlements along Puget Sound populated by young men who have answered the call to the Northwest. What is needed now is women. Women with good background and education to become wives to these men, to help establish homes and families, bring a civilizing influence into the territory. Where to find them? The answer was provided by Mercer Girl. So called because it was Mr. Asa Mercer who had the idea of coming east and recruiting a shipload of brides from New England, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore.
The meeting begins at 8. We'd better get there early if we want good seats.
We? Annie Stevens, wild horses wouldn't drag me there.
Why not?
Well, you think I'd put myself up in a matrimonial block?
You know you'd like to get married, Lizzie.
But not to a lot of strangers.
Let's face it. There aren't too many men left to choose from here since the war.
Do you have to remind me that I've lost every one of my fiancés?
Out there, it's just the opposite. The ratio of men to women is 9 to 1.
9 to 1? We'd be surrounded. What fairly makes me shiver.
You could have my 9 too, Lizzie. I'm dying to go out to the Northwest. But not for a husband. I want to teach.
You and your career.
What an opportunity to carry learning to a new frontier.
I don't think that this Mr. What's-his-name, Mercer, would take you. He's only interested in brides.
Why, he's an educator himself, Lizzie.
He is?
Head of the Territorial University out there.
I still think he's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Some of the most influential men in the country are behind him. The governor of Massachusetts, the Honorable Peter Cooper, the Reverend Edward Everett Hale. He turned over his pulpit in Boston one Sunday to Mr. Mercer.
You mean they're taking old maids from New England?
They've lost their men, too, in the war.
Annie, I will accompany you to the meeting this evening.
Good.
I wish I could convey to you ladies something of the beauty and grandeur of that Northwest country, of the blueness of its waters and skies, the magnificence of its forests and mountains.
I thought he'd have gray hair and a goatee. He's young. Hush.
As head of the Territory's Institution of Higher Learning, I've had occasion to visit the various camps and settlements. I know the loneliness of those men, how they long for the care, comfort, and companionship that only a good woman can give them. The women that I am appealing to are women of culture, versed in the art of housekeeping and homemaking, who will ensure the future of the territory. I have already signed up more than 300. If there are any among you who are interested, I shall be glad to talk to you after the meeting. Thank you.
Perhaps I wouldn't qualify, sir. You see, I want to go out to teach, not to marry.
My dear Miss...
Stevens, spelled with a P-H.
There is no compulsion to marry. One young lady from Fall River, I believe, wishes to go out as a seamstress. We need women who can sew and teach.
Then I'm ready to sign up.
Good. Here's a form.
My goodness. You gotta give character references.
Naturally.
When do you plan to sail, Mr. Mercer?
I'm on my way to Washington now to check the final arrangements with General Grant. I'll notify you as soon as I know the date of departure.
I put the matter before President Johnson and the cabinet. Got their approval.
I'm most grateful to you, General Grant.
Not at all. I know what it's like. I was stationed on a post in Vancouver once for months. The longest, loneliest months I ever spent.
The government then will consign me a ship.
Here's the order, all made out. One sailing ship, fully manned and provisioned, with a capacity to carry 500 passengers. Take this around to the Quartermaster General's office, and he'll put it through for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, General Grant.
Impossible.
Impossible? But it's been signed by General Ulysses Grant, sir.
I don't care who signed it. I won't honor it.
But, sir,
The government can't consign you a ship under any circumstances, Mr. Mercer. Next.
But what am I to do with all these women, these 500 brides of mine?
500 brides? Who do you think you are, King Solomon?
How am I going to face all those bachelors back in Washington Territory who financed my trip east?
You really have 500 young females on your hands?
Yes.
I always heard they did things out west in a big way, but... Look, I still can't consign a ship and a crew to you, Mr. Mercer. There's no law to justify it. But I tell you what I will do. I'll condemn one of the government ships and let you buy her.
Buy it?
The sailing ship Continental. You can have her for $80,000.
Where will I find $80,000?
Where did you find 500 women?
He appears to have run into a little difficulty in Washington.
Maybe he couldn't furnish character references.
Lizzie, how can you say such a thing? After meeting the man, talking with him, he says this is only a temporary postponement. He's gone to New York to make some new contacts.
I wonder how his wife feels about the whole thing.
His wife?
Well, he's married, isn't he?
I'm sure I don't know.
He must be anyone that handsome. And I bet she thinks just what I think.
And so I've come to you, Mr. Holliday, because, well, frankly, I need an angel.
With 500 on your hands already? What you mean is you need some money.
$80,000.
And what makes you think that I'd be likely to come up with it?
Because you've done more than any one man to open up the West, Mr. Holliday. You own half the stage routes out there, and now you're planning on building ship lines, aren't you?
For a college professor, you're not so dumb. All right, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you the $80,000 for, what's the name of the ship?
Continental.
Outfit it and transport your young women from New York to the West Coast, with the understanding that the ship then becomes my property. Agreed?
Agreed, sir. I'm most grateful to you for coming to my assistance. Thank you, sir.
What did I tell you? It's all settled. We report in New York not later than November 15th.
We?
Oh, I mean me. I sail on the ship Continental, procured from the United States government, seaworthy and completely sound.
Man?
With sailors.
I never thought of that.
I'm going to start packing my book.
Annie, I'm going with you.
Lizzie!
Well, I couldn't bear to think of you taking that long, dangerous journey alone.
Oh, Lizzie, I'm so happy.
Good afternoon. I'm Todd of the Times.
A newspaper reporter.
You're, both Mercer Girls?
We are members of Mr. Mercer's party. That's what you mean.
And you still plan to go? In spite of the article that has appeared?
Article.
Oh, not in my paper. We'd never questioned Mr. Mercer's motives. It was in a rival sheet, the New York Herald. You haven't read it?
We only just arrived from Baltimore.
We expected to find Mr. Mercer here.
Well, he's probably gone out to kill the editor of the Herald.
What did the article say?
Well, perhaps you'd better read it for yourself. Personally, I don't think there's a word of truth in it. But it would make a girl pause and consider. Right there on the front page.
Of all the scurrilous attacks, guilty of entrapping hundreds of innocent young women, luring them west for the purpose of... Move your thumb at me so I can see.
Here comes Mercer now.
Hello. Miss Stevens, Miss Ordway.
Mr. Mercer, how many cancellations have you had? Todd, of the New York Times.
I'm not giving out any interviews.
This is perfectly outrageous. You should sue for libel, Mr. Mercer.
Unfortunately, the damage has already been done.
Then girls are dropping out. Uh-oh. Here go two more.
Ladies, that article is a lie, from beginning to end. This expedition has the endorsement of educators, ministers, and statesmen. Ladies, please.
Telegrams for Mr. Mercer.
Here.
More cancellations, I'll bet.
All ashore.
Goodbye, America.
For goodness sake, where do you think Washington Territory is?
The other side of the world.
Well, how are you feeling now, Mr. Mercer?
The way Moses must have felt when the Exodus finally...
Todd, of the Times.
What are you doing here?
Came along to cover the story.
Who gave you permission?
Well, there seemed to be plenty of room on board. And I'm only too glad to pay for my passage. $100 a head, I understand.
Now that you young ladies have your sea legs, limbs, I should like to arrange a daily schedule for the voyage. Each morning, I recommend a brisk constitutional around the deck. Afternoons may be profitably occupied with needlework and writing in your diaries. In the evenings, I shall give a series of lectures on the Northwest. Today is the 24th of January. We should reach Seattle by the end of April. Deo Valenti.
What does that mean, Mr. Mercer?
It means, God willing.
Ask me, he thinks he's the Almighty.
Mr. Todd, that's sacrilege.
Well, please. I want to talk to you.
There are 95 other girls on board.
But you're the only one I care about. Why do you think I came along on this female exodus?
To write the story for your paper.
Because I saw you.
Mr. Todd.
You're not going to throw yourself away on some backwoodsman in the wilderness?
You better not let Mr. Mercer hear you talk like that.
Mercer, the first port this ship puts in, you and I are going ashore and get married.
You mean alone? Oh, Toddy, you wicked man.
Good evening, Mr. Mercer.
Good evening, Miss Stevens. You're up rather late, aren't you?
I wanted to be on deck when we crossed the equator. I thought as a geography teacher it would be an experience.
You won't see very much, except the moon.
Isn't it thrilling?
The moon?
The equator.
It's just an imaginary line encircling the Earth.
Are you talking about the terrestrial equator or the magnetic equator?
Does it matter?
They're not the same thing at all, Mr. Mercer. To be sure, they rarely coincide. But the magnetic equator is that line, imaginary as you say, along which the Earth's magnetic force is zero.
Magnetism. Zero.
That's correct.
My guess is we're crossing it this minute.
Sailor suits are so cute.
You gonna pack your stuff and come ashore with me, or aren't you?
Now, Toddy, don't press me.
Press you? It's been 2 months since we left New York, and at every port you've made excuses.
Oh, but they've been such dreadful and civilized places.
Well, this isn't. We're anchored in the harbor of Valparaiso, Chile. If you don't marry me here, you won't get another chance until the Galapagos Islands.
Now, Toddy, it isn't that I don't love you. I think you're the most fascinating man I've met in ages.
I'm beginning to think you're nothing but a flirt, Lizzie Ordway.
Oh.
What's that?
Man on board! He nearly landed in my lap.
Allow me to introduce myself. Don Federico Victorino Bilbao of Valparaiso. I came as ambassador for the caballeros of our city. Word reached our ears of a shipload of American senoritas in the harbor. Young and beautiful. And reports were not exaggerated.
I could swoon.
With the permission of the captain and your dueña, we should like to welcome you ashore this evening as our guest at fiesta. Well, where is your dueña?
What's going on here?
You are their dueña, senor.
I'm in charge, yes.
My credentials, senor.
I don't read Spanish. What is it you want?
Company of your fair passengers, senor.
He's invited us to a siesta.
Fiesta. Tonight.
Well, that's very kind of you, sir. But I'm afraid I shall have to refuse.
Oh.
Nobody is allowed ashore.
It would be a great disappointment to the young men of Valparaiso. They had anticipated teaching the senoritas from the north of Fandango.
Oh.
These young ladies are my personal responsibility. The answer is an unequivocal no.
Oh, darn it.
That infernal music. I suspect they're keeping it up just to aggravate us.
Not the Spanish. They're much too polite. Don Federico Victorino Bilbao. Perfect gentleman.
You can understand my point of view, though.
Oh, you made it quite plain.
And you approve?
To be perfectly honest with you, Mr. Mercer, I don't.
Miss Stevens.
This has been a long, dull, tiresome voyage. The girls are starving for some fun.
I've tried to provide entertainment.
Playing proverbs, singing hymns. They need fun. Put yourself in their place, Mr. Mercer. Sailing to a new, strange land, not knowing what lies ahead. They're homesick, a little frightened. But most of all, they're bored.
I have a duty, Miss Stevens.
Oh, I know.
I guaranteed to deliver these girls to Seattle, and there I'm going to deliver them.
What difference would one evening ashore make?
With those handsome Chileans, why, it might change a girl's whole life.
Oh, don't be such a prude.
Prude?
You may be a fine educator, but as a man, you're cold and stiff and inhuman.
Miss Stevens. You're a fine one to talk. You know what I want to do whenever I'm near you?
No.
I want to shake you. You're the prettiest girl aboard. You've got everything to attract a man. And what does your conversation consist of? Terrestrial and magnetic equator. Syntax in Plato's Republic. I beg your pardon. I must have forgotten myself.
I think you did.
Good night, Miss Stevens. This marks the end of our passage aboard the Continental. Arrangements will be made for further transportation from here to Seattle as soon as possible. Check the bulletin board at the main stairway for further instructions. That's all for now.
Here's your last chance, Lizzie. I'm quitting the party here.
Toddy, I can't bear it.
Well, then come ashore and marry me.
Well, I'm just torn. I feel I should go on to Seattle.
And see what they have to offer there?
Now, Toddy.
Well, you know where to reach me. Todd of the New York Times.
If you prefer to remain in San Francisco, Miss Stevens, you are at perfect liberty to do so.
Not go on to Seattle?
You still plan to teach?
Of course.
Well, I think it only fair to point out that the opportunities are far more lucrative and more numerous in San Francisco than in Washington Territory.
Then I'm being dismissed.
Well, so long, Mr. Mercer. Thanks for the boat ride. Hope to see you in New York on your next safari. Well, it's true, isn't it, that this is only the first of many that you contemplate?
Mr. Todd, when I deliver this shipload of young women to Seattle, God willing, I am through with women for the rest of my life. Well, Miss Stevens?
I think I'll continue to the end of the journey, if it's all the same to you.
It has taken me over a year to accomplish my mission. I have bankrupted myself in the process. But I have done what I promised I would do. I have brought you a shipload of young women. Virtuous, refined, splendid young women who will gladden your lives, make beautiful homes, and assist in the development of the great Northwest. This gathering tonight is to give you all a chance to get acquainted. Formal introductions are not necessary. So, without further ado, on with the dance.
The first wedding took place within a week. By the end of 6 months, all the girls were married except one. And she remained a spinster all her life. The Mercer girls, without exception, proved to be a wonderful influence in the Northwest. Families in Washington and Oregon today take pride in being descended from them. What about Asa Mercer himself? Well, the records show that on July 15, 1866, Miss Annie Stevens of Baltimore became the Mercer Girl for life.